Today, the two American service members and college student who stopped a potentially devastating shooting attack in France are getting accolades from the highest levels in the U.S. President Obama is expected to call them any moment now. Secretary Kerry tweeted earlier, incredibly proud. American heroes. And General Philip Breedlove, Supreme Allied Commander of NATO forces in Europe, issued a statement saying in part, quote, "These men are heroes. Actions like this clearly illustrate the courage and commitment our young men and women have all the time, whether they're on duty or on leave." Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, ranking member of the Intelligence Committee. Thank you for joining us, Congressman.
You bet.
First of all, what is your reaction to how these three young Americans reacted?
Well, I'm enormously proud of what they did. I think all Americans are. It was really an extraordinary act of courage, and we can thank God that they were there on that train, or the casualties would have been far worse. So really quite remarkable and a source of tremendous pride for all Americans.
That's for sure. Are you seeing any intelligence pointing to a motive or possible terrorist ties?
We're trying to confirm the identity of this person, what ties they may have had, whether they were in fact under the scrutiny already of some of the European intelligence agencies, whether this person may have traveled to Syria. All this will help inform us of whether this is somebody who was radicalized at home or actually went overseas, got military training, and was sent back on a mission to try to kill people. So the information is still very preliminary, but those are some of the questions that we're asking.
You know, there's really no security on U.S. trains, including Amtrak, that Washington-New York run. I'm on that. I see your colleagues from Capitol Hill on that. Should security be heightened on these trains?
You know, we have looked at the security on our trains, and we have increased security. We're going to look at it again, I'm sure, in the wake of what has just happened. The reality is, though, we can't harden every target. If you harden trains, then people will potentially attack in buses or restaurants. So we've already seen attacks, domestic attacks in movie theaters. So the reality is there are limits to what we can do in terms of trying to harden every potential target. It's probably more important for us, frankly, to work on dealing with this problem of homegrown radicalism, of expanding our contacts between law enforcement and community members, to identify those at risk of radicalization, as well as making sure that we have our systems up to date, working well in screening passengers coming from Europe, those that might have been exposed to military training in places like Syria or Iraq.
All right, and I want to turn you, of course, to the Iran deal. A lot of developments this week. Yesterday, Congressman Gerald Nadler announced his endorsement 2 days after President Obama sent him a letter. Senator McCaskill has also signed on. Will President Obama get the necessary votes, Congressman?
I believe that he will. And, you know, there was a powerful op-ed by Brent Scowcroft in the Washington Post today. You're seeing a lot of, I think, outside validation of the agreement. And look, the agreement everybody acknowledges is not perfect by any means. When you negotiate with an implacable foe like Iran, you're going to have to give as well as take. But it does cut off these pathways of Iran to get the bomb. That's the most significant part of the pact, and it's an accomplishment that we shouldn't shrink away from, even as we try to contain Iran and its conventional and nefarious work in the region. So I think the support is building for the agreement, but there's still a lot of members on the fence.
In his op-ed on the Iran deal this week, President Obama wrote, quote, "As Commander-in-Chief, I have not hesitated to use force when necessary. If Iran does not abide by this deal, it's possible that we won't have any other choice than to act militarily." There it is, in writing, military action on the table. Could this come back to bite the president?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, it has always been on the table, and it will always be on the table as a deterrent to Iran. Look, if Iran, at the end of 15 years, when it has this enrichment capability, goes and highly enriches uranium, we will use force to stop them. If they take steps that are inexorably leading to their getting a bomb, we will have to use force to stop them. If Iran were to acquire the bomb, it would set off a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. They could threaten and extort, and they could use it to literally wipe Israel off the map. So we will just not allow that to come to pass, and I think the president is right to make that quite explicit.
I want to talk to you about Hillary Clinton. Are you confident that you know what the facts are on the email controversy? And are you also fully confident that no classified information was at risk?
Well, we do know the facts in terms of the emails, and we certainly know the facts now about Benghazi after more than 8 investigations. So there's not much new that we're going to learn in terms of the events of that tragic night. With respect to the emails, we clearly have a tussle here between the State Department and elements of the intelligence community over whether certain emails should have been classified at the time that they were sent. But the fact is undisputed that they were not marked as classified when they were sent to the Secretary. Hard to lay responsibility at the Secretary's feet for the receipt of emails that were not marked as classified. So I think we know the parameters of this. But nonetheless, the GOP views this as their sole line of attack on the Secretary. They're using the vehicle of the Select Committee as a cudgel against her, which is a terrible abuse of the congressional investigative process. And I really feel bad for the representations that were made to the families of those victims in Benghazi at the beginning of this investigation that would be about finding out the facts in Benghazi. Because after more than a year, 16 months now, and $4 million, we know nothing new about Benghazi that we didn't know already. And obviously, whether emails were sent to the Secretary that should have been classified at the time sheds no light on the events in Benghazi.
Her campaign has certainly been hijacked, though, by all of this talk. So should the Democratic Party start taking maybe a more serious look at some of the other candidates and possibly Vice President Joe Biden, who's very well liked?
No, I don't think this email business really in any way diminishes Secretary Clinton's candidacy. She's a very strong candidate. I think she'll make a superb president. And I think once we get past this, when you have actually a comparison between candidates, the Secretary will hold up extremely well. And if you look at a lot of the Republican candidates, like Jeb Bush, for example, who use their own private email servers, they're not going to be in a position to throw any stones on this. So I think we have a very, very strong nominee, potential nominee in Secretary Clinton.
A supporter for Secretary Clinton, Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much.